Welcome back to more UCL Fantasy content. This will be my team selection for Matchday 16, the second leg of the Champions League semi-finals. We get three free transfers, and for the Champions League final, we get 5 available moves, and we only need a starting 11 for that specific game week, and it's all about that 1 week kind of set 11. We can't change the captaincy or make substitutions, but we can do so for Matchday 16, which is our main focus right now, and I'll be looking to optimize my team, try to go for some differentials, and rise up those mini leagues and the rankings. Thank you to everyone who has been supporting the channel. We are on the cusp of achieving 33,000 subscribers, and it's all thanks to you lot with the subscriptions, the likes, sharing, commenting, and those that tune into every single video and podcast for UCL Fantasy and FPL. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, and let's keep on pushing towards new goals in the future. And check out all the social media platforms in the description for my X, Instagram, and Blue Sky, Dylan RCM. You can also find me by typing FPL Dylan. There's my Discord server, UCL Fantasy League, and Spotify also in the description. Without further ado, let's jump straight into it. The first leg took place only last week, so it's quite fresh in our memory, but let's recap on how I did in Matchday 15. And in previous rounds, I got my choice of goalkeeper spot on, but it wasn't the case this time, with Szczesny and Raya both blanking, and it was Donnarumma who was the standout with a clean sheet and making multiple saves against Arsenal, and Szczesny only got 1 point overall, so that was quite frustrating, and I actually missed out on 2 points by subbing out David Raya for Wojciech Szczesny. Now, with my defensive line, it was also a little bit frustrating because Nuno Mendes and Hakimi got the clean sheet, and Hakimi was booked there, so he only got 5 points. Mendes got some ball recoveries, but Bastoni got 4 points. I mean, it was the best of a bad situation, conceding 3 times and getting something on the board. But Jules Koundé was subbed off due to injury before the first half even ended, and now he's out for the next 3 weeks. So that was also a little bit of a pain. And I had Saliba on my bench who got 3 points, and I think going for Bacho and tripling up on that PSG defence would have been ideal, or at least going for Donnarumma between the sticks. So that's why sometimes going all in on a certain defence can really help you if you get it right, of course. And I did something similar for the Champions League final last season with Real Madrid. So obviously getting your kind of predictions spot on and going all in on a certain team can really pay dividends at this stage of the season. I would usually advocate for diversity and also covering different teams in earlier rounds, but in this case, I think the only way you can go differential is by piling up on certain teams like Paris Saint-Germain in the first leg. That might not work out for the second leg, but I think it's just really important with the timing, your transfers, and also getting the captaincy spot on. All of these things go a long way to boosting you up those ranks and mini leagues. Now in the midfield, it was much better because every single one of these players returned. Of course, my fifth option in Bukayo Saka, who was my original captain on the Tuesday, he blanked and was also booked for a 1-pointer. But Rafinha, as he usually does, got an 8-pointer here with 2 assists. Of course, the second one came off Summer, so that was classified as an own goal. Lamine Yamal got a 7-pointer and was terrific. That easily could have been double digits. Ferran Torres scored in Robert Lewandowski's absence, but the Polish striker could be knocking on the door for the second leg. And Ousmane Dembele scored within the first 4 minutes to stun Arsenal. And he didn't get the Player of the Match award this time, but he was quite close, and he put in another great performance for the Parisians. In the forward line, though, it was very underwhelming, with Thuram scoring in the first 25 seconds. That was very good, and not many people actually had him. Only 8% ownership, and not every UCL Fantasy manager would have subbed him in. But Lautaro Martinez was also subbed off due to injury, and he is doubtful for the second leg. But many reports indicate that he's doing everything possible to be available, and it looks like he will be in contention to start, as I'll discuss later in the team news section, and also in tomorrow's deadline stream. Now, everyone on my bench did blank. That isn't really a surprise. So Raya, Saliba, Saka, and Doué, and that's what you want to do. Have your Tuesday players start, you pick a Tuesday captain. If it doesn't go according to plan, you can sub them out and change the captaincy. I'm still getting questions about, should I captain Rafinha or Dembele? They play on different days. So for Matchday 16, you would captain Rafinha first, and then change it to Dembele if needed. You might be unhappy with the score or be greedy with the points, and that's where the substitutions and the change of captaincy come into play. But for Matchday 15, I got 63 points and a small green arrow to 27,000, so it's not great, and this would be my second worst rank ever, so it's not where I want to be. But I want to end this season strongly. I know it has been an underwhelming campaign for me, but it's still a solid rank overall. and the aim is to win all the mini leagues that we're in, of course, and I think a lot of you will feel the same way, and hopefully these UCL fantasy videos and podcasts have helped you to achieve those goals. But let's move on to my transfer plans for Matchday 16. We only get free transfers, and I'm not planning to take a hit, but what I'm going to do in this section is show you all 5 possible transfers, and 2 of them will basically depend on the fitness of Ousmane Dembele and Lautaro Martinez. But if they are available, my plan is to sell David Raya to Donnarumma, as PSG have the best chance of a clean sheet, which I'll show you later in this video, and I don't see the Gunners keeping a clean sheet in Paris. They have a great record in European competitions in France, but I'm not so sure if they'll be able to make this comeback, and even if they do, I think they'll concede in the process. In my defensive line though, this transfer is definitely locked in. Jules Koundé will be sold because he is out for the next 3 weeks, and Denzel Dumfries is the standout to replace him. I will temper my expectations. I don't expect him to replicate what he did in the first leg with a brace and an assist. That would have been a massive differential, by the way. For those that went there, that is the sort of thing you're looking at to really propel you up the ranks and mini leagues. But Dumfries still will play in that advanced role and cause Barcelona problems, especially from set pieces where the Catalans look very shaky. So Denzel Dumfries will likely come in, and I'll double up on that Inter Milan defence with Bastoni and the Dutchman, Denzel Dumfries. And my third transfer will likely be in this position, but it's not set in stone. William Saliba to Willian Bacho, and that would mean a quadruple up on the PSG defence with Donnarumma, Nuno Mendes, Hakimi, and William Bacho, who gets so many ball recoveries. But this isn't locked in either, because I think Saliba can still get some ball recovery points, and it might be worth having one Arsenal defender at least, and maybe 2 or 3 players overall. I'm essentially going from a triple up in the Gunners to just one player if I sell Raya and Saliba, and that could be a massive mistake. In previous rounds, I only had Saliba and Saka, and basically I was kind of ruining not having Raya and doubling up on the Arsenal defence, which is still fairly solid, and in the Champions League they have been one of the best defences alongside Inter Milan, but we haven't seen it so often in the Premier League this season. They haven't kept back-to-back clean sheets in that competition since August, so it has been a dismal season for the Gunners, and all the hopes lie in the Champions League. But let's actually imagine a possibility or a scenario where Ousmane Dembele is out. I would likely replace him with Kvaratskhelia, who could still be transferred in regardless, for Ferran Torres, but that would be a luxury transfer considering all the doubtful players we have, and Jules Koundé is definitely out of the equation right now. So we need to go a little bit different perhaps in certain positions. I think Kvaratskhelia was very impressive in the first leg. He gave Timber a lot of different issues. It was a very good battle on that left-hand side for PSG, and Kvaratskhelia could be one of the difference makers in this second leg of the Champions League tie. But my final possible transfer would be in the forward line, and this would be high risk, high reward, because both Lautaro Martinez and Robert Lewandowski are in a race against time to be available for the second leg. And the current scenario that we basically have, according to all the sources and what they're indicating, is that Lautaro will start and Lewandowski will get 30 to 40 minutes off the bench. But we might even see a scenario where it's the other way around. But the Polish striker has progressed very well, and whilst it was kind of reported that Balde would be fit for this game and Lewandowski for El Clasico, it now seems like it'll be the other way around, with Lewandowski being available here for Matchday 16 and potentially having a say in yet another Champions League tie. But I think this would be a very pointless transfer, so to speak, if we still don't have that concrete information about will Lewandowski get 30-40 minutes for sure off the bench. And if they're both ultimately not starting, then I might just leave this transfer to another area of the pitch where I can bolster my squad and get more points in the process by making that move. But both players are capable of scoring off the bench, and that's where the conundrum certainly comes in. But I think the first 3 transfers I showed you are the most likely, and they're all in my goalkeeper and defender positions. So that would mean none in the midfield and none in the forward line, but it all depends on those injury updates. But let's now discuss my Matchday 16 team selection as things stand. It is provisional, and I'll lock it in during tomorrow's deadline stream. So I don't see myself making a move here. Wojciech Szczesny will remain as my Tuesday goalkeeper. He faces Inter Milan away from home, but I would rather have Sommer for this specific game. I know Barcelona might end up going through, but I think Inter Milan have a better chance of a clean sheet. Their defence is also more solid, and they also at home, they haven't lost at the San Siro in the Champions League for several years now, and despite recent blips and only one win out of the last 6 matches, I believe, Inter Milan are still a very difficult team to beat, especially in these really huge games like in the Champions League where they have been imperious all season. In my defensive line, it looks slightly better. I've got Dumfries, Bastoni and Nuno Mendes, but I've also got some Wednesday players on my bench there, as you'll see very soon, but that's assuming I buy Denzel Dumfries and William Baccio as part of my free available transfers. So that means an Inter Milan defender, or 2 of them, in Bastoni and Dumfries. I've only got Szczesny to cover Barcelona, and I don't have Inigo Martinez. Jules Koundé is out, and I'm not going for any of the other Barcelona options in this defensive line. But I think PSG have the best options in terms of ball recoveries and attacking threat, and they're the only team worth tripling up on defensively at this stage of the competition. In my midfield, I've got Rafinha, Yamal, Ferran Torres and Ousmane Dembele. I think they're all great shouts. Ferran Torres is the only one who's a question mark now if Robert Lewandowski gets 30-40 minutes off the bench, or maybe he gets a start, and we will find out tomorrow during the deadline stream. If that's the case, I'll be selling Ferran Torres and instead keeping Dembele. I do feel the Frenchman will be available. That is my opinion. And despite having a hamstring issue, it might just be tightness more than anything else. And PSG rested their entire 11 except João Neves in that 2-1 loss against Strasbourg. I think Yamal and Rafinha are always great options for the captaincy. And on the Tuesday, that is no exception there. And Rafinha did score once more this weekend in another 2-1 win for Barcelona. And my forward line isn't exciting. We all have the same options at this moment in time, but you could go for Robert Lewandowski and Lautaro Martinez simultaneously if you're on the wild card or have the limitless chip. Perhaps you're in a position with fewer injury doubts like Dembele and Jules Koundé, and you can afford to make a bold move in the forward line. And whilst their minutes aren't secure, I think having both of them simultaneously could be a very big push to your mini-league aspirations and the rankings. But Thuram and Doué should start in their respective matches, and I think Lautaro will also get the nod. And if that's the case, I'll keep him and avoid Robert Lewandowski for at least one more match day. And on my bench, I've got a decent set of players here with Donnarumma, Hakimi, Baccio and Saka. So that would mean only one Arsenal player. I would have a lot of PSG options here in Donnarumma, Hakimi, Baccio, Dembele and Nuno Mendes, not to mention Doué. So I'm going all in on the Parisians, but I could also be a little bit different with my final transfer and sell Doué to Robert Lewandowski and perhaps go for a different defender. Maybe I'll keep William Saliba in the end. These things aren't locked in, but I think the most kind of nailed on transfer is Denzel Dumfries replacing Jules Koundé from that Tuesday match. I think that makes a lot of sense, and that's the only thing I can guarantee you at this moment in time. And with the captaincy, it is fairly locked in, but also not quite settled yet. I think Rafinha will be my Tuesday option, but if you want to go different and be very differential, that won't be the way to do it because Rafinha is template. We all rely on him as a consistent UCL fantasy performer. And on the Wednesday, another template pick would be Ousmane Dembele. Those are my current captains for each day. But in terms of alternative picks, which I highlighted in my best team video, you could look at Yamal, possibly Dumfries, and one of Lautaro Martinez or Thuram for the Tuesday. If Ferran Torres starts, you might want to go for him, and Dani Olmo is a good shout. Those are the only players I'd really consider for the captaincy, and you might even make a case for Robert Lewandowski. He could score off the bench, and it could be the winning goal, and he gets the Player of the Match award. I think he has that capability and high ceiling, but I think that would be a very high-risk, high-reward scenario, and for those looking to preserve their rank, just go for Rafinha and Dembele as solid shouts. But if you wanted to go different for at least one of those captains, I always say this, on the Tuesday, go for anybody you want, even if it's completely left field, and Denzel Dumfries could be one of them. And then if it doesn't go according to plan, you've got that Wednesday option, like Ousmane Dembele, who is template, safer, and almost guarantees you points in the process if he starts. And of course, you can lock in your substitutions during that sub window and get the lineup for Arsenal PSG in the process there. But that is the way I kind of go about it with the captaincy, the substitutions, and the structure of your 15-man squad. It's time to look at the clean sheet odds, and PSG are top for matchday 16 with a 29% chance of keeping a clean sheet. Barcelona are second with 22%, Arsenal are third with 21%, and Inter Milan are last despite being at home with just 17% chance of keeping a clean sheet against arguably the best attack in world football, and that was a high-quality game between Inter Milan and Barcelona in the first leg. Could we see another high-scoring thriller? It's certainly possible, but maybe things get cagey in that game, and things will open up in the PSG-Arsenal game instead. Football is a funny game, completely unpredictable at times, and momentum shifts in the blink of an eye. With the goal scorer odds, though, we have Lautaro Martinez in top spot, and that's assuming that all of these players start, and that won't be the case, of course. We've also got Ousmane Dembele, Rafinha, Gonzalo Ramos, and Yamal in the top 5. Then you have Ferran Torres, Thuram, Barcola, Saka, Kvaratskhelia, Taremi, Martinelli, Olmo, Doué, Trossard, and Nwaneri, who would go up to 15th if Lautaro Martinez is dropped from this equation, but I don't think that'll be the case, as the reports indicate that the Argentine could start or at least get significant minutes off the bench, and there is no sign of Robert Lewandowski, so that could be a great shout as a substitute, making an impact against Inter Milan. He has done it in multiple big games in the past, especially in the Champions League, but those are the current goal scorer odds, and as you can see, it is neck and neck. You've got Lautaro Martinez and Dembele with both a 40% chance of scoring there, so basically they're joint top. So a very, very compelling list, and the lowest goal scoring percentages we've seen all season, and there aren't as many standouts of Lewandowski not in here at the moment, and that of course could be a big miss for the Catalans if he doesn't start the game, but I think he is just capable of doing a lot of good things even as a substitute. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Who are you backing to score in Matchday 16? Do you expect a clean sheet to be kept this time? Of course, PSG were the only ones to do so in the first leg. Could they repeat that once more? Or will Arsenal perhaps shock people in Paris? And for the Inter Milan-Barcelona game, that is such a tough one to call. Who are you backing to go through to the Champions League final? And let me know your thoughts in terms of Predict 6, your UCL Fantasy teams, and much more in the comment section. One of the new additions, apart from these graphics, to these UCL Fantasy videos on live streams is the team news and talking about stats and highlighting things you need to know for Matchday 16 and beyond. So the first leg ended in Arsenal 0, PSG 1, Barcelona 3, Inter Milan 3. Away goals are no longer a thing. That has been the case for several years now. So it's all to play for in the second leg, and both ties remain up in the air. In terms of the bracket, we all know what it is. The winner of Arsenal PSG will face Barcelona or Inter Milan in the Champions League final, which takes place in Munich. Guirassy remains the top scorer with 13 goals, and there were no kind of new additions or changes to this top scorer list. Rafinha remains on 12, but got 2 fantasy assists, of course, in Matchday 15. Kane and Lewandowski have 11. Vinicius, Lautaro Martinez, and Haaland all have 8 goals, so we're really looking at Rafinha, Lewandowski, and Lautaro Martinez for the top spot in the Champions League Golden Boot. So let's see who ends up winning it. And Rafinha is now the top assister with 8 official assists. Now, in terms of team news, Benjamin Pavard has shown positive signs and partially trained with the group today, and this was reported yesterday. So on Sunday, the 4th of May, tomorrow will be crucial to understand whether or not the defender will be ready for Tuesday. And I also saw other reports on Sunday night, which all point towards Pavard starting and replacing Bissek in the starting 11. Now, something else for Inter Milan, of course, which I referred to throughout this video, is about Lautaro Martinez. The feeling is that Lautaro will be available to face Barcelona on Tuesday. The forward is doing everything possible to recover in time. Double sessions, physical work, recovery work. He has a great will to be there. Now, with Inter Milan in general, they rotated their entire team against Hellas Verona, but secured a 1-0 victory. They are 3 points off Napoli, who are top of Serie A, and despite a positive week, Inter Milan only have 1 win from the last 6 games across all competitions, so Pavard missed Matchday 15, but could be available for the second leg, and Lautaro Martinez, things are looking good for the Argentine there, and the same goes for the other injuries and suspensions, because Inter Milan are in much better shape now than they were going into Matchday 15, which was only last week. Now, looking at Barcelona, it looks like Balde will not be counted on, and he is out for that game against Inter Milan, but he should be available for El Clasico. So as I mentioned before, the roles have reversed with Balde and Robert Lewandowski in terms of their progression from their respective injuries. And of course, with Lewandowski, I talked about this as well. He will be ready for the Inter Milan game. The Polish striker is fit enough to at least make Barcelona's bench for Tuesday. So he will be in that squad, and he could be another great UCL fantasy option that we can buy in potentially. And as for the captaincy, because it's the Tuesday, you can go left field with Lewandowski and take that massive risk. I honestly wouldn't put it past him to score a winning goal there against Inter Milan. And Barcelona have shown great form. They won 2-1 away from home against Real Valladolid, and the goals were scored by Rafinha and Fermin Lopez. The Catalans are 4 points clear of Real Madrid, and El Clasico takes place next weekend, actually, only a few days after their clash against Inter Milan. And Barcelona have 7 wins from the last 10 matches and are the most informed team left in the competition. Casado is close to return, whilst Ter Stegen and Bernal remain unavailable. Balde will likely feature in El Clasico, but not in Matchday 16. And Robert Lewandowski, things are looking very good for him, and he is once more an option in UCL Fantasy. But moving on to the Wednesday games, Ousmane Dembele has been diagnosed with a hamstring injury, and it's a muscle strain in his right thigh. So that is what was confirmed by PSG. His situation is evolving, progressing favourably, per the club's official report. Now, PSG have 29 wins, 3 draws and 4 losses from the last 36 games, but they only have 2 wins out of the last 5 matches. They rested 10 key players in a 2-1 loss versus Strasbourg, with João Neves being the exception. Dembele is doubtful with a hamstring issue. Kang In Lee was subbed off at halftime due to injury on Saturday, but apart from that, everyone else is available, no suspensions or injuries, and I think Ousmane Dembele will start against Arsenal. And they have problems of their own. Jurrien Timber is expected to be fit to play against PSG, but he missed that game against Bournemouth. He wasn't even in the squad, and Arteta said he can't guarantee that he will be available for Matchday 16. And the other bit of news that we got from the Bournemouth game was Odegaard suffering a small kind of knock, but he said, I think it's okay. It was just a hit, so it's a bit sore, but it's fine. And in terms of Arsenal and things to really look out for there, now, their recent form has been poor. There is no two ways about it. They lost 2-1 at home to Bournemouth, which marks their second consecutive defeat, both at the Emirates. The Gunners only have 6 wins from the last 14 matches, with 6 draws and 2 losses. Declan Rice scored on his 100th appearance for the club, so that was one positive, and Odegaard got the assist. He had a solid first-half performance, but then tailed off in the second. Calafiori and Timber are doubtful, whilst Jorginho and Havertz are ruled out. The likes of Gabriel Jesus, Gabriel and Tomiyasu are unavailable for the rest of the season. But one really positive bit of news for Arsenal is that Thomas Partey returns from suspension. Of course, he picked up his 3rd yellow card in the second leg of the quarterfinals against Real Madrid, and that ruled him out against PSG, and that was a massive miss in the midfield. But now he's available. That will push Declan Rice up to a box-to-box role that we saw against Real Madrid, and he will have more license to bomb forward. And it also means Mikel Merino will likely start up front, and Leandro Trossard will be on the bench as an impact sub, giving Arsenal a little bit more depth and different options, which they didn't have in Matchday 15. Make sure to tune in to tomorrow's deadline stream so I can answer all your questions and comments and make sure you're well prepared for Matchday 16 and beyond. So I could, in theory, just stick with Arsenal, have hope, hopium, stick with Raya, Saliba, Saka, and also add Merino, who could play up front, of course, against PSG, and have 4 Arsenal players versus 4 PSG options there. Buy Lewandowski up front to replace Lautaro Martinez. Dumfries in for Koundé is just nailed on anyway, but that is another set of transfers I could make. Of course, the ones I showed you earlier are the most likely, and in tomorrow's deadline stream, I'll be locking in my squad, and we will be approaching the final moments of this Champions League campaign, which has been riveting from start to finish with the new format. 2 extra games in the league phase, the knockout playoff rounds, of course. That means more football, more injuries, more money, more football, more enjoyment, you could say, more entertainment. It has been a positive addition so far, but I'm still kind of skeptical about it. It is up in the air, but it has been a better season than I expected in this competition. We'll see how it ends, but we should get some great Champions League semi-finals, and then going into Munich at the end of this month. That will also be covered with the best team, my own team selection, and another deadline stream there. I've basically covered every single match day and game week across UCL Fantasy and FPL with all the content you need, and I hope you've enjoyed the ride so far, and we have a positive end to this season. Over 5,000 people have joined our UCL Fantasy Mini League, making it the biggest in the world. Hopefully we can get to over 9,000 so we can play the appropriate meme there, but the code is cCaFxb, and there's an auto-join link in the description, which makes it even easier to join. And we have a lot of different social media platforms and different ways to connect and continue the conversation and grow the community even further. It is a great one to be a part of, especially on YouTube. Thank you very much for all your support. We are closing in on new goals like 33,000 subscribers. Let's reach it by tomorrow's deadline stream. And thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it insightful, then like this video, subscribe to the channel, and also hit the notification bell so you know when I upload a live stream both UCL Fantasy and FPL. Follow me on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. You can type in DylanRCM or find me by typing FPL Dylan. There's my Discord server, UCL Fantasy League, and Spotify. All of them can be found in the description. I'll see you tomorrow for yet another deadline stream for UCL Fantasy, and the same goes for FPL with yet another stream this weekend and more videos throughout the week.